Hello again, Jeff Romanchuk with Everyone's Autistic. This video is a follow-up to the facilitated communication article in our most recent newsletter, and I wanted to say that that facilitated communication is still alive and kicking. Was a big surprise to me and Kathy going into 2023. A few things. Well, autism is always a prime candidate for some kind of assisted or augmented communication device because what's true across the spectrum from low functioning to high functioning is that the autistic person's receptive communication is always a lot better than their expressive communication. There's always that communication imbalance, and if that can be helped by some kind of assistive communication device, then so much the better. But facilitated communication most likely is not that way to go. The bottom line is then as now, I mean, when I first researched it in 1994 and looking at the most recent articles, whenever the facilitator doesn't know the answer, then the client who is being helped tends not to know the answer, even if it's something that's common knowledge to the client. When the facilitator does know, most of the time, the client does know. So the issue of who is really doing the communication is the big question mark in facilitated communication. And the other thing going on is you'll notice there's a range of support that are all, okay and acceptable depending on what the client needs. From pushing against the palm as they press the letters on the communication device or point to the letters if it's just a simple printout, to maybe a support of their forearm, or even just touching them at the elbow or touching them even at the shoulder. So the issue of this range of assistance leads to questions of why the assistance is necessary at all. And then the other problem with facilitated communication that tends to keep cropping up in the research is that why can't any trained facilitator work with any client? It seems to be that certain clients work best with certain facilitators, and granted, we all have our preferences for people that we like and people that we don't particularly care for, but that aside, you should be able to have one person work with one facilitator, no matter who, and get similar results. But that tends to not be the case in facilitated communication. One of the things going on is apraxia, which is just another way of saying what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that the expressive communication is a lot worse than their receptive communication. So that's the apraxia side. And Rosemary Crossley, who started facilitated communication in Australia, called this dyspraxia, but that's the same issue going on, the same inability to express oneself that assistive communication, facilitated communication, all that is trying to support. So maybe one of the reasons facilitated communication is still around is that it might have actually a sweet spot with clients who their expressive communication is impaired, but they don't have any other impairments such as autism or mental retardation or whatever. But if that were the case, why would they need facilitated support? Why couldn't they just communicate with an assistive communication device? There's that going on. And So basically, to sum up, there's still a lot of controversy to the method, but facilitated communication is still around, which, as I mentioned, was a surprise to my wife and me. I did the paper, it's been 28 years ago, and it's the same sort of support, the same kind of, everything is still being found in the research to say, no, this can't really be. And yet, it's still here. So, 29 years or 28 years is a long time. Um, maybe there's a sweet spot for it. Maybe there's a reason for it to still be alive and kicking. And maybe future research will either kill facilitated communication once and for all, or support it for, as I mentioned, certain clients that it definitely works for, and that can be shown that it works for.